This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Audible. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Wednesday, December 29th, 2021. It's the last show of the year, and I have the delightful Tom Honeyands here, the Tech Chap himself. Hi, Tom. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well. You've grabbed me on my one working day between Christmas and drinking too much on New Year's Eve.
Well, lucky me. Wow, thank you. I feel honored.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. I saw you in Hawaii and I was like, we need to get Tom back on because Tom always has a really great perspective on things. So, not a lot of news this week. Like, it's just been pretty quiet, obviously, with the holidays and whatever. But I thought we'd go over what we expect at CES. You're not going, I presume?
Just today, I've cancelled everything. I was leaving it till the last minute. I kind of had decided not to go a couple of days ago, but it's, as obviously flying from London, it's just COVID. It's just not worth the risk.
Oh, yeah.
You can't not get it in Vegas. I know some people are still going, but it's just too risky for me.
I feel that you're making the right call. I am, at this point, still going, but that might still change the next couple of days.
Well, you can drive, which reduces the risk.
Right, so that's the first thing for me. And also, I have a sponsor who's giving me a hotel room, and I figure that, I still am going to have to deal with Lyfts and Ubers, because I'm not going to drive my own car everywhere. And I'm still going to have to deal with finding food, and that, obviously, is the bigger danger right now. But, look, I'm alongside with Theo, boosted, and we've had COVID. So it's like double vaccine or triple vaccine, COVID.
You're indestructible.
I think we will be okay based on what I'm reading about Omicron. The biggest challenge is that we will probably be, isolating afterwards. We're going to Palm Springs after, which we do every year anyway, just the two of us. So at that point, we'll just be chilling out. Hopefully everything goes okay. We're going to avoid all the crowds. So we're not going to the show floor unless we have to. We're not, going to any press conferences. We're just going to go to probably the three media things, but like double masks, probably wearing gloves, to be honest with you at this point.
Honestly, that's the best way to do CES anyway. Like no one leaves Vegas not getting ill in the best of times.
I know.
But I will be sad not to go because I'm going to get massive FOMO and I'm going to be all by myself here in rainy old England. So I will be very jealous.
And I think I don't want people to think I'm justifying. For me, I'm a freelancer. It pays my bills. So I have to really balance the sponsorship is free, meaning I have no expenses on lodging. So and driving my car, it's a Model 3. It's just going to cost me nothing in fuel, right?
Yeah.
So the reality is, do I want to stay home and not write any stories and not get paid and not get COVID? Or do I want to take a chance and get paid and write some cool stories? And that's the challenge. And my spouse and I are going, obviously, because they work with me on a lot of the podcast side stuff, producer and video side stuff. So it's a matter of, do we stay and not make money, or do we go and make some money and mitigate the risk? And it's tough, right? Of course, we still have 2 days to decide. I think Friday is the last day we can really pull the plug, if anything, at this point.
I did see OnePlus pulled out today. It's been a trickle, but not necessarily like a domino. There's still enough going. And maybe if Samsung pulls out, that would change things a little bit. But
my sponsor could still pull out. Like I
true.
don't think they will at this point. They don't have any indication to. But the reality is, right now it looks like we're going, and we have decided we're going to do some things. Like mostly, I want to get hands-on and first impression on things that I know are not on the show floor, because most of my coverage for freelance work will be car stuff. So a lot of companies I'm dealing with have little parking lot based suites where I don't have to deal with the public as much. So the public being all of us, because it's not a public event, right?
That's true. But lots of exciting tech. I mean, you said that we've had a quiet week, but we've had the Xiaomi 12 series announced.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. There's a bunch of things. See, this is the reason I have you on the show is because you pay attention to that. A lot of my colleagues in the US are like, Chinese phones, whatever. But you know me, I love my Chinese phones.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, before we jump into the news, what are your thoughts on what we're going to see at CES? We're obviously not going to see the OnePlus 10 Pro, which was rumored to be there because they canceled whatever event they had.
Yes, I think they were going to have it in person for like at their private event, but now they're not having it there outside of China. It's a shame though. It's a weird one because we don't. It's the first time we would have seen a full like OnePlus launch or a Chinese launch, albeit at CES. Normally, it's just a concept phone or something.
2 years ago, it was that orange concept phone. Were you there for that?
Yeah, that's right. With the cameras that could change their polarization or whatever it was. Never saw that in reality, did we? That never came anywhere.
I don't think it made much sense. It was cool, but at the time I was like, nobody's going to do that. It's like, but it was cool as an ND filter. I thought like, oh, look, instant ND filter, kind of a cool idea. But I'm bummed that we're not going to see whatever it is that we might have seen from OnePlus. But at the same time, Samsung is rumored to launch the Fan Edition, but I don't think it's at CES. I think it's going to happen that week, right?
I've in my calendar, I've got it mid-January, like the 11th maybe or something, but I haven't heard for sure. But yeah, the S21 FE. But even that is like only a month behind what will be the S22 series.
I know, it doesn't make sense. Do you remember 2 years ago when we still went to CES when that orange OnePlus concept phone was launched? They also launched at CES the Galaxy S10... S10 something and Note 10 something. Light?
Yes, it was like a Note 10 Lite. Yeah, weird. No one cared.
Yeah, nobody did care. And also the specs on that were such a weird mixed bag. I keep forgetting there was a stylus phone launched that, we keep forgetting about those light notes. Like, was that the only light note we ever got? I think it was.
Yeah, I just never read anything about it. I saw it randomly on the show floor and thought, where did that come from?
You know how it is, like you and I get to play with all the toys. So we go out in the real world, right? And every now and then we'll go, ooh, a Z Flip, nice, right? Like I think I've seen one in the wild. I don't know if you've seen any folding phone.
I've seen a couple. The Z Flip 3 has been the one that finally actual people I know are buying.
You know, it's funny. Today, Lance Ulanov, the editor-in-chief of Tech Radar US, my boss's boss at Tech Radar, wrote a really great story recapping 2021. And he said he hasn't seen a flip phone in the wild yet in the US. And I believe him because I live in San Francisco. So my chance of seeing a flip phone in the wild is much higher. I mean, and then of course there's all of you all, my friends, my colleagues, my media posse, as it were.
Sure,
and you guys are
that.
all like, of course you're going to have this stuff, right?
Yeah, but we don't pay for it. Well, most of the time.
That's my point.
They review samples.
So here's the thing. Like my question to you is, of all the cool phones that are not really popular, which ones have you actually seen in the wild? Because that's the thing, like that Note 10 Lite, I don't think it's an enthusiast phone at all, but it's also so niche, so weird. Like in the US, it won't be popular because people buy their phones through carriers and buy them subsidized.
That's right.
And so they buy the flagships. I think the Note 20, I've seen a few of those in the wild. Not the Ultra, of course, the Ultra I've seen many, but the 20 is about as low as it would get gone for a Note. So have you ever seen any phone that were like, oh, look at that?
Yeah, one of my friends, my close friends, bought a Z Flip 3, and he loves it. And I've seen a couple in the wild. I think maybe one fold. It's mostly in London, obviously, but very few and far between. But I mean, I think the Z Flip 3 was the first phone that actually maybe makes sense financially because it's a similar price to the S21 Plus. Similar specs, just a more interesting form factor. So the Fold is just still way too expensive for most people. And I've had a Fold for a while, obviously the Fold 3. I love it, but I don't really want to use it every day. And I didn't pay for it.
Yeah, I raise you in Oppo Find N here.
Well, I will also raise you an Oppo Find N.
Oh, you have one too? Okay, let's talk about it then, because I didn't know if you had one.
I love it.
So before we do, now I'm lining everything up. CES, what else do you expect? So the Fan Edition, that's more like a post maybe CES thing, although it could, I don't know. I haven't been briefed on anything. Samsung tends to ignore me, so I don't know.
I haven't either, actually. I think we'll see obviously lots of TV stuff from both Samsung and LG. In fact, just today, about 2 hours ago, we saw LG's EX, new next gen EX OLEDs, bit brighter, thinner bezels. That's from LG Display. Samsung obviously will have new QLED, whichever it is. They do both. But phones, obviously, OnePlus will be hands off now for the 10 series.
I think TCL has something, but
yeah, and Hisense. There's a bunch of TVs.
Yeah, but I'm talking about phones. I think it might be like entry level ish. Like I don't think they're gonna give us their good stuff just yet, which is fine.
Yeah, I think most phone brands will wait a little bit because I know Red Magic and there's going to be a whole ton of these Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 phones coming in the next sort of 4 or 5 weeks. So I think a lot of them will probably announce just after CES, or especially if they've changed their plans.
Does it seem to you that we're getting these sooner than usual?
Yeah.
Like last year already it started, right? The Mi 11 came out, like the Xiaomi 12 we're going to talk about. It came out during Christmas to New Year period. Like, kind of like, hey, we're the first, right? This year's Moto was like the Chinese announcement of the Edge X30 or whatever it was. And that was like 2 weeks ago or something. So I think everybody's trying to
they're trying to race to the first. And Realme's there as well. Realme's come out of nowhere with a Gen 1 device.
We covered that last week. Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited about it.
And Oppo, there's leaks of the 4. We'll talk about that more in a minute. The Find 5 probably.
I think they're going to skip the 4, which would be really weird. Because how do
OnePlus did it, and
I know, but it's strange. I mean, I get it culturally, but I'm just like, have we always skipped 4 on all Chinese phones? Because it seems like we haven't. I'm not sure. Anyway, who knows? The point is that you're right. We're going to see a whole volley of the rest of January of Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 phones. What will really matter, though, is which one is going to be the first for the global markets, right? Because right now, everything we're talking about, even if the OnePlus 10 Pro had actually dropped. We still don't know, but if that's what they were going to show us at CES, that I don't think would have been the westernized version of it, right?
No, agreed.
There's no way. It's too early. Like, why would they do that?
I think it could be the Oppo, because they're often early February, but then obviously we've got Samsung late February, but it could be the Oppo.
Do you still think we're on a late February track for the S22? We're not going to get it earlier?
Maybe. Oh, that's a great question. Yes, you're right.
I love this.
No, I do. Yeah, me too. I'm excited. There's lots of leaks. People are excited about it. I'm not totally convinced on the design, where it looks like they've taken the S21 and just removed the glass around the camera housing, so you just have the lenses, which are going to scratch really easily. We'll have to see.
You know what? It's going to look like the Velvet a lot, which I kind of like.
Yes, the LG Velvet. You're right. They've stolen that idea.
That was such a good design.
Beautiful.
All right, so CES, the usual, right? Basically TVs, washing machines,
some
fridges,
robots,
drones, lots of car stuff. So I'm still...
Lots of cars.
Yeah. So part of the reason I'm still going, BMW's get some stuff, Mercedes get some stuff, at least as far as I know. GM has pulled out fully, and no surprise because they have nothing to show as usual. I mean, I hate to say this, but look, I cover EVs and car tech partially for a living, and where is GM? Like, yeah, people are going to say the Hummer is literally shipped supposedly this month. Like, supposedly somebody out there received their Hummer. I bet you it's like an employee or in-house or some celebrity or something. Like the Rivians, right? Like there are Rivians in the wild. I finally saw a Rivian in the wild here in the Bay Area.
Wow.
But I'm pretty sure it's owned by like an employee or a celebrity or something.
Mr. Rivian. Yeah.
Yeah. I did manage to get in touch with them again and kind of push a little bit and say, hey, when is my review unit coming? Because you guys have already lent one out to Engadget. So, hello. But anyway.
Well, you get all the cool stuff. Like, we just don't see that over here. We don't see the F-150 Lightning. We don't see the Hummers. We don't see anything from Rivian, the Lucid. We don't get any of that in the UK. It's really boring. We just have to look at VW ID4s and things.
Oh, I know. But here's what you have to do.
Audi Q-tron.
You have to come fly out here when COVID gets better and borrow John Rediger's Lucid and do a video with him. You guys collab. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
I'd love that.
I'm talking to Lucid right now. They're probably going to lend me a car soon because they're realizing that I reviewed the EQS. All 3 models. That's actually coming out this week on Tech Radar.
The AMG one as well.
So 4,000 word review. So, hey. Yeah, all 3. Like the 450 Plus, which is the 2-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive model, and then the 580 4MATIC, which is the all-wheel drive premium model, and the AMG EQS 53 4MATIC Plus. Those names, oh my God. But anyway, yeah.
I looked at how much that was. It's like 120 grand. It's crazy.
So they don't have pricing in the US officially yet for the AMG model, but in the UK they have pricing for the AMG. And if you convert, and then remove 20% like you have to do, for tax, VAT, and the fact that US pricing is usually a bit less. It's about, I think it's going to look at about 150,000 US, give or take, base model, which it's an AMG, it's an S-Class, and it's an EV. Of course, like I don't think people who are comparing that with a Plaid are idiots. Like you cannot compare the two cars in the sense
there's no luxury to a Plaid in that regard.
The Plaid is more of a straight line performance vehicle with all the advantages of Tesla, which is, the supercharger network and the technology. But the Mercedes has a surprising amount of really usable, intuitive technology as well, which is really interesting how they're doing it. And my review obviously focuses on that.
I'm going to read your review as soon as you post it. I'm excited to see what you think.
I'm stoked because it was such an epic, it took me a month to write it. There was so much little detail. I'm like, oh my God, I found another feature. Like,
I love
and
that.
I only had the 450 Plus for a week, but then I spent an afternoon with both the AMG and the all-wheel drive luxury one. I mean, they're all luxury cars, but the super high-end trim. It's an incredible car for the size. It drives incredibly well for the size. That's the thing that blew my mind. Better brakes on the AMG than the Plaid for sure. That's the big thing on the Plaid. I think that's lacking. But performance-wise, it's no Plaid. I mean, very little is really.
Nothing is. Well, yeah.
Nothing is, except for maybe the, what is it called? The Rimac.
Rimac, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
I don't know how you pronounce that, but I think you say Rimac for the name of the car, and then you say Rimac for the name of the guy. I believe there's a different pronunciation.
Interesting. I learn something new on this podcast every time.
I interviewed him when I was in Croatia a few years ago. It's on my YouTube channel. That was just before they announced the current car. Like, they were working on it. Anyway, we're totally digressing. I love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. But I just want to point out to you that you said you guys don't get cool cars. But like you got the Ioniq 5 before we did. Quite a bit.
Yeah, I had played with it a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, my editor John reviewed it on Tech Radar. He's based in the UK. Before I got to drive it, and I drove it 2 weeks ago. And it's a great car for the money. I drove the ID4. It's all right. I mean, I think it was spoiled, you and I, because we have Model 3s. Like it's
yes, yeah. I mean, I like the Ioniq 5. And there's a lot of nice features, including I was going to say the cameras come on when you turn the indicator on, but now V11 of the Tesla, that they've added it to it. So my Model 3 has those blind spot cameras now when I indicate, which is pretty cool. But the Ioniq 5 was really nice for the money as well.
No, I love the car, the looks of the car. As somebody who grew up in the 70s and 80s, it really fits my kind of... Oh,
yeah, the retro pixel.
The Lancia Delta Integrale Audi Quattro Coupe kind of vibe. Very cool. I'm a bit disappointed with the interior. I think it's perfect for the zeitgeist, for where we live now, for the kind of practicality people are looking for. But to me, it's a very boring, non-pilot oriented. I like the Kia a lot better, the EV6, right? I think
most people do.
I haven't played with it yet. It's again, here's another car you're getting before us. Like, so, and you're going to be getting you're getting some cars we're not going to get at all. You have the EQC SUV from Mercedes. That's an electric SUV you've had for a while. We're not even getting that at all. It's not coming until the next generation. So there's a few cars we're not getting. And then, like Honda E, right? Cool looking, cute little runabout. Cute. Mm-hmm. And we don't get that. But I'm currently driving the Mini Cooper SE, which is, I think, called Mini Cooper Electric for you guys. Although for us, it's an S model. So it's actually a Cooper S performance-wise. So it's a little higher, zingier. But it's fantastic. The range is crap. It's 100 miles. But once you get over that, right? Once you get over the fact that it's just a city car, oh my God, it's fast and it drives like a dream. And, I don't know. It's got that mini character distilled into an EV. It's just fantastic. So I'm reviewing that right now. That's my Christmas to New Year's press loan. Not a bad way to spend a week, right?
No,
although
not at all.
It's been pouring rain the whole week, so I managed to find a little bit of sun the other day to take my photos. But anyway, so lots of cars at CES. I don't know, Hyundai, Kia, I'm going to check it out to see what they're doing. But for me, the focus is going to be BMW and Mercedes, because I know for sure they're announcing things that are going to be interesting. And then I was going to do OnePlus, but I'm actually kind of limiting what I'm doing. Like, I'm not going to hunt for things. Like, forget it. That's not even remotely happening.
Have fun. Network as well. Like,
because
don't kill yourself.
Plus, I have to write these stories as they happen. I can't just, be on all over the place all day and then it's 10 o'clock. I got 3 stories to write now. No, that's not going to happen and stay up till 4 a.m. Remember back in the day, I don't know if you've ever done that with your video work, but I've been out and about all day and then now it's like I'm going to get up till 6 a.m. because I got editing to do.
It's horrible. Editing takes
terrible.
Such a long time as well. Like I wish I could just do words sometimes, but I have to write my scripts and then I have to edit it and shoot the A-roll. Well, you know about this. It's such a time intensive. And I just want to go out and have a beer at the end of the day.
Exactly. With the friends. So I think it's kind of going to be nice in a way that we're like, okay, we're going to spend a lot of our time in the hotel room and just work and, get room service. Perfect.
That sounds nice.
It's not a bad deal. All right. So cars, TVs, fridges, washing machines, and very few phones. I really don't know of any phones actually, honestly, other than the potential Galaxy S21 Fan Edition coming out sometime in that first couple of weeks, but that's not necessarily CS related. The OnePlus 10 Pro was rumored supposed to come out at CES, but I think we're still going to get all the info if it does. It's just not going to be something we can put our hands on.
They already leaked the specs of the OnePlus. They didn't show it.
Oh, yeah, right. I mean, it's coming for sure.
Yeah, but my question to you is, because I know we're going to talk a lot about phones and also folding phones and more interesting designs, but looking at the Xiaomi 12 series, the Realme, the OnePlus specs, the headline is Snapdragon 8 Gen 1.
Right.
And then maybe the IMX 707 from Sony. It was I'm really struggling to see much of an upgrade this year. Obviously, we've not had hands-on, we've not tested cameras. We were both in Hawaii with Qualcomm looking at the reference devices for Snapdragon, but you can't get an indication of what that really means. So I'm looking at these specs and it's just, 120 hertz LTPO, AMOLED, 4500 mAh batteries, except for LPDDR5 RAM and the new chip. We'll have to see what that can do for the camera, but that's why I think people are really going to be looking at maybe different designs and why companies are putting more emphasis on the different form factors, because I'm not seeing it. What do you think? But I'm not seeing anything massively exciting so far.
I love this thing. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about
because I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. These seem very evolutionary, these Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 flagships. For the folks on Patreon, I'm going to take a second to remind folks that, yes, you can watch this podcast instead of listen to it, because we do a special edition on Patreon, and we're both holding our Oppo Find N's right now. You have a much nicer background than me. I just went with the default because I'm lazy. But at the same time, I love this phone. I love it so much. I mean, you have to understand, I've always been more of a flip fan than a fold fan on the Samsung side. And yet for this one, I finally feel, this is kind of the right thing for me. I can finally use this bigger real estate for some reason, because it doesn't try to entice me to multitask too much. I just get more real estate,
Which no one really wants to do on a phone. I know it sounds great, but unless you have a Note 20 Ultra with the pen and you really, really want to, multitasking and split screen apps, beyond occasionally doing that, I just want the nicest experience. And this is something when I reviewed the Fold 3, I love this thing, but the front screen is too uncomfortable, it's too tall, and the tablet screen is too big. So when you're out and about, you need to get an Uber, you're answering an email, someone's calling you, when you're in the middle of a tough day and you just need it to work. And in those sort of hard situations, I find the front screen just a bit frustrating, the big screen a bit frustrating because I can't hold something else while I'm using it. I just want to go back to a regular phone.
And this is the perfect size, isn't it?
This is the perfect size, and the front screen is just the cutest thing, and it's nice, and it fits in your pocket.
Look at it. It's you can actually use this thing. I can reach all 4 corners with my hand, and it's about the size of an iPhone 13 mini, right? The front.
Yeah, and thin bezel.
A lot of people, that's perfect. So I love the form factor. That's the biggest thing takeaway for me. The build quality, the material, the premiumness of it is
beautiful,
remarkable.
And the crease, and what an upgrade over the Fold.
So little crease. Oh, look there! I got a nice, good background there. Ooh.
Oh, there you go.
Look at that
nice.
one. Ooh.
Oh, I see.
I got the magazine screensaver turned on. That's why. Oh, look, it goes to the front when you close it. That's my other favorite thing, is that little thing where you, in an app, you close the phone and you can immediately resume from the front. It doesn't assume you're going to put it in your pocket, so it gives you that option to slide up to bring up the app to the front screen. brilliant, absolutely genius, because I do this all the time. You know, as you said, you're like waiting in line at the coffee shop, you've got it open, you're like browsing Instagram in gorgeous full screen, like awesomeness. And then, oh, you need to interact with the barista. Close the thing, you continue in the front. Now you can grab your coffee and say, thank you, barista, for the great, delicious drink you made, and not look like a complete idiot. Right?
Exactly.
It's all about pleasing the barista. You got to please your barista.
Oh, yeah, especially if you're a regular, because then otherwise they'll spit in your coffee.
Exactly. Piss in it. Sorry, this is degenerating, but it's okay. That's what the podcast is about. We're crass sometimes. What else I like about it? I think it's got all the specs. It's got the minimum I need for everything. It's got wireless charging. It's got, you know, a pretty decent fast charging experience, 33 watt. It's got tons of RAM and storage.
The 888's good.
Yeah, camera is essentially, if you look at this camera system, it is, other than the ultra wide, the Find X3 Pro camera system, you just don't get that 50 megapixel second Sony IMX760. God, I love that sensor is so good on every phone. You reviewed the Nord 2, right? The Nord 2 has that sensor, and a lot of people were blown away, like, my God, this is better than OnePlus 9. I'm like, yeah, because the 9 doesn't have OIS and the Nord 2 does. I mean, crazy. 9 Pro obviously is a different thing, but the 9 is so disappointing compared to the Nord 2, and I feel like this camera system. I also have right now the Oppo Reno 6 Pro, the Snapdragon 870 version, because there's multiple versions of that phone. And it's exactly the same camera system, down to the T, like exactly the same specs. So like 16 megapixel ultra wide, the 50 megapixel main with OIS, and then it's got that 13 or 12 megapixel 2x, useless 2x telephoto. It's not bad, but I don't understand why even on the Find X3 Pro, they didn't put at least a 3x, because with that 50 megapixel sensor, you can zoom in 2x, no problem, right? It looks fine.
Anyway,
so why put a non-stabilized as well? It's like it's stabilized electronically, but it doesn't actually have OIS on the 2x telephoto. So you get a lesser sensor, less low light performance because of the f-stop. Like, I don't understand it. And I think half the time when you shoot in low light, it doesn't even select the telephoto if you go 2x.
Right.
Like a lot of phones, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Although that's one area I found the Pixel did quite well. That super res zoom was very impressive.
Yeah, of course. Xiaomi also has that thing where they do the super res. They have their own version of it on the high-end phones, and it's really good. I just feel like it's like almost a token telephoto. It's like, we're not going to put a sticker cam, like I call them, like the 2 megapixel useless cams.
2 megapixel depth, 2 macro.
I know. Anyway, camera system solid. Front cameras are okay. I don't know. I've just used them for video calls. I just love that thing. Battery life's okay too. Like, I'm surprised. A lot of people are like, 4,500 milliamp hour, that big screen, that's going to be rough. And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't had any issues. Have you had any issues with it?
No, it's fine. I mean, coming from my iPhone 13 Pro Max, everything sucks.
Well,
for battery life,
of course.
But in the real world with other phones, no, it's been fine.
I mean, I'm rocking a Pixel 6 Pro as my main, and honestly, my Pixel 6 Pro isn't a champion either, but they're both full day phones, no problem. Like, I don't.
Yeah, it's the first time with the iPhone I've been looking at it. I'm like, I actually don't need this much battery. It's the first time I've ever said it. I always end up with like 45% left by 11 p.m. If it was 20% lower than that, I would be okay, but you can't win with those tech reviewers.
I just want to let people know who are listening that Tom just keeps flaunting us all the phones in our faces on the video right now.
That's why you have to subscribe to Miriam's Patreon.
That's right. Like patreon.com/tankgirl. It's patreon.com/TNKGRL. Just pay attention, folks. You'll love it. Anyway, yeah, the Oppo Find N, I am so happy with it. And, of course, here in the US, we don't get 5G support on it. We just doesn't have the bands. But I'm running it on LTE on Google Fi right now, and it's just fine. That's obviously T-Mobile, right? We all know that. Just happened to have my Google Fi SIM lying around. My main SIM is a T-Mobile SIM in my 6 Pro. I didn't want to take it out of my Pixel, but it's been a solid phone, and I think I'm going to use it at CES as a workhorse and see. That's going to be the true test, right? I mean, I got to take of course, the Pixel 6 Pro is coming with me for the photos. My Galaxy S21 Ultra is coming with me for also the photos of cars, because the ultra wide is not wide enough on the Pixel 6 Pro, believe it or not. So I carry just in my bag an S21 Ultra just for the better ultra wide, and for the occasional times I need to telephoto up to like some ridiculous amount. Mm-hmm. Although I have to say, the Pixel 6 Pro does a very good job up to 10 or 12x, no problem with that super res zoom,
it does
right?
very well.
So it's a tough call. So really, I'm carrying a Galaxy S21 Ultra for the ultra wide. Hello.
The video is a little better as well, I think, on the S21.
Well, I also have an iPhone. So you see.
Oh, well, that's video then.
I'm also carrying that around.
Yeah.
I don't have the latest. I have an 11, but the 11 is my video workhorse. That's all I do with it, mostly. I would test iPhone-y things, right? New features or whatever. I've got it in my bag as well. So my bag always has a S21 Ultra and an iPhone, just because I need to, you know. And then my pockets are going to have the Oppo Find N and the Pixel 6 Pro, and I'll see what happens. It'll be interesting.
It was quite funny. When we went to Qualcomm in Hawaii, I had 3 phones with me. This S21 Ultra, the iPhone 13, and the Pixel 6 Pro. And I realized because I have the UK version of the Galaxy, it's the Exynos version. So I have 3 phones, and none of them are running a Snapdragon chip.
That's hilarious. Oh my God, yeah. I had a couple of MediaTek phones with me on that trip, and I was like, oops. I can't remember
it's
what
fine. We won't tell them.
They were like mid-rangers that I happened to just receive just before that. I think one of them was running a MediaTek Dimensity 1200. I want to say it was a Realme. Yeah, wait. The Realme GT Neo?
Right. Yes, I think that's
2
right.
Or something like that. Yeah, I had that.
GT Neo 2, yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, basically, like, I love this phone. I think it's a great phone. If you live especially in places where you can get import it and it'll work on 5G, like the UK or Europe or Asia, you know, of course, China is a Chinese phone, right? So, but you should be very happy with it. Just be mindful of the fact that you're going to have to jump a few hoops to get all your Google stuff set up. Like, it's there, it works, but it's not like you know, it's not part of the onboarding. So you're going to have to like onboard and then probably restore from another phone, or like manually by copying, like, you know what I mean by that, plugging a cable in. It's not going to be a cloud restore from your Google stuff. So be aware of that. You might want to do a backup using Oppo's downloadable phone clone app, you know, install that on your Pixel or your Galaxy, clone the phone that way, and I think it'll get you all the content over. It works really well for me. I got almost everything, including my app data. Like, I was still logged in Facebook and stuff. It was really,
sweet.
It was really good. Yeah.
Now, Miriam, you did mention that you still prefer flipping foldables. So obviously we've got the P50 Pocket coming. What do you think?
Let's talk about those things.
What do you think about it?
So we talked about the P50 Pocket when it was rumored a couple of weeks back. And I think at this point it's official, right? Like, it's been announced. We have specs and everything.
They've got some fancy videos of it as well. They've shown off. It looks
so what's
nice.
your takeaway? This looks like a bigger Z Flip, right?
Yes.
Essentially, and fancier, like
much fancier.
Bedazzled, like, you know, very Chinese phone here.
That's a great way of, bedazzled. Yeah. It's really shiny and fancy. It's for the upper class businessman or the lady to put it in their clutch purse. I think it looks cool. I think the 2 round cutouts, one for the camera, one for the front screen. You know, circular screens are not necessarily the best in the world, but it's something different. I tell you what, I just miss Huawei. I think
me too.
There's a lot of controversy. They make life difficult with some of the choices they make, but then you know, the US and China both have their problems. But I just miss the innovation, the tech, the engineers and the scientists over there coming up with some interesting stuff, top end cameras, unique designs, like, you know, the Mate X, or just the camera systems, the low light. They basically invented good low light photography on cameras with the P30, P20. I
don't know. This is a 40 megapixel main sensor, and I'm wondering if it's an RYYB sensor, because the most 40 megapixels, that at least the ones that Huawei has been using, have been the Sony RYYB bespoke sensor that Sony's, several of them. There's been 2 of them. So I'm wondering if that's what it is.
I don't know.
Nobody seems to be specifying. I hope it is, because that would give you a pretty solid main camera. Doesn't have OIS on it though, and it's interesting because they did that with the Mate 40 as well. You had to get the Mate 40 Pro Plus to get OIS on the main sensor. Like,
it seems weird. It's a weird choice then.
Well, I talked to them about that in the day when the Mate 40 came out. They sent me the Pro, and I was like, yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't have OIS on the main sensor. What are you nuts? And they're like, well, that's on the Pro Plus. And I'm like, yeah, but on the P40 you have it on the regular Pro and even on the main Pro. And like, hello, like, this is like one of your core competencies. They're like, yeah, you know, it's not our main camera centric phone, it's a business centric, video centric phone. And I'm like, you're just trying to save money. I get
Absolutely.
it. And I think that's what's happening here. And honestly, the stabilization algorithm is very solid. I can't complain. It's not too bad. But you notice it in low light, right? Because it has to just hang on longer.
Yeah.
Unless you use night mode. But then again, night mode on the RYYB sensors is like, okay, let's pretend we're in the middle of daylight at 3 a.m.
It's
It
so
looks
artificial.
a bit weird.
Yeah, you're right. But we're not getting the P50, are we? The Pocket. It's China only. Is that right?
No, this is China only, absolutely. A 6.9-inch screen, which is really big, folding in half. It's got that weird resolution we see on a lot of the Huawei Phone 1188, but it's 2790. It has a Snapdragon 888 4G, because they're not allowed to have the 5G version. Interestingly, that they still have a Snapdragon in there.
That's so funny to me, because they must have to go into it, disable it, just for, because you can't buy it without the 5G. It's built in, isn't it? It's the SoC, so they must have to like disable it. It's so strange.
It's probably in firmware. I'm actually wondering if Qualcomm's not binning a version for them.
Interesting.
They disable in, like they burn the modem part out. Like they just could disconnect.
Maybe they'll have to physically export it. They might not be able to.
I wouldn't be surprised if the US forced them to do that. Like hardware change it. I don't know what's going on there. But the other thing that's interesting, it's got a spectral camera, a 32 megapixel camera that looks like it sees infrared in part. So it gives you that, it's going to give you some really, remember that camera on the OnePlus 8 Pro?
Saw through clothes.
It's the same deal as that.
Yeah, well, could see plastic underneath certain materials.
Yeah, so I expect very soon they'll disable it when people complain that they can see through clothing. But it's the same deal, and based on the f-stop and the size of the sensor, this should be actually very interesting. But yeah, it doesn't have a telephoto. It's just got main, ultra-wide, and that weird spectral camera.
But then there's the Galaxy Z Flip 3 camera is not the best out there either. No. I think people don't care. We do, but the average person...
honestly, it's good enough. It's like, the S20 Fan Edition, which is soon to be replaced by the S21 Fan Edition. For the money, that phone's camera system was a proven camera system. It was a double 12 sensor and then an 8 for the telephoto. Like, honestly, you don't need better than that. And I've took some phenomenal photos of that, because it's like the Pixel 5a. It's so well tuned by this point. These sensors are so old and so legacy, and the software for them is so solid. And then you throw more horsepower and compute power at them, and of course they do really well. It's not as good as an iPhone 13 or a Pixel 6 Pro or S21 Ultra or whatever's coming next. Of course not. But like, you're not gonna notice if you just came from, say you came from an iPhone 11, right?
Oh, sure.
And you bought a Z Flip. Like, no, that's probably a bad comparison. Nobody goes from iOS to Android. Like, no way.
If you went from an S8 or something, or
There you go. You came from an S9, let's be generous, and you just want a Z Flip. It's just going to be great. You're just going to love it. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, you know what I'm saying? I feel. I don't know.
Agreed.
Maybe I'm wrong.
No. I think you're absolutely right.
So this P50 Pocket is official. We got some specs, 4,000 milliamp hour battery. It's got fast charging. It doesn't have wireless charging. 40 watt fast charging. Let's see. I don't know. It looks interesting. I love the design. I think it's, maybe a little too bling for me, but I kind of love that the Chinese phones just don't hold back. They're like, oh, you want the blingiest of the bling? Here we go.
It's a little tacky, but for some people, it stands out. It's not a black rectangle. So
I think this is going to be super popular in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, and until the sand gets in it, and then it'll be the end.
Because that's the downside of the Oppo N, isn't it? There's no water resistance here, whereas we do get IPX8 on the Fold.
Well, they say it's somewhat water splash resistant. I wouldn't dunk it.
It's like the old OnePlus phones where they can't do a proper IP rating, but it basically
is. Would you dunk your Z Fold or your Z Flip? I don't think I would either, even though it's officially like... I think that's pushing it. I even feel bad sometimes about dunking like standard, bar phones, like the ones like the Pixel 6 Pro and the iPhone 13, because I'm like, do I really want to bother? Like it has so many lives, like, 9 lives or whatever. Like
I was working out this morning and my arms get quite sweaty. So I bought a Series 7 a couple of weeks ago. So I just ran the Series 7 under the tap to clean it.
Yeah.
I was like, this isn't right.
That makes perfect sense.
But I'm like, I should be fine for that now because it's got the rating.
Yeah, I mean, if you go in the ocean with salt water, you should probably rinse your Apple Watch when you get home. But this wearables are a little different. I trust them a little more with the water resistance. I feel like The phones, though, but anyway, this is really cool. And speaking of, as you said, there's like all kinds of more interesting folding phone news. The Magic V, the Honor Magic V that was teased last week in a photo is now, well, it's like in a very promotional, like kind of half open. Now there's a video. Probably that photo was a screenshot from that video last week.
Still doesn't tell you anything.
No, but it does look like a Z Fold competitor. Like it looks to me like they took the old Huawei Mate X2 design, not the foldy outside, but the foldy inside design, and made that into, inherited some of that technology when they split apart. And they're making a phone. And the question will be, is it coming anywhere else interesting?
Well,
like
the Honor comes to the UK. The Honor 50.
That's what I'm saying. Like, will you guys get it?
Yeah, I think. Well, I can't say for sure on the Magic 5, but the Honor 50 did, and their whole thing is that they have the Play Store. I just know that they won't be giving one to Mr. Who's the Boss, because he'll make a video about how they're exactly the same as Huawei.
It's the same as the X. Yeah. Well, he does have a point. Like I have the Honor 50, and I'm not here to offend and upset Honor, but I have asked them the question up front because I'm like it seems to me like Realme, Oppo, and OnePlus love to make variations of the same phones, but they're cosmetically different. You look at the specs, so they're very close to be identical. Examples are the OnePlus Nord 2 and what was one of the Masters Edition Realme.
Yeah,
had the same exact specs, but they were physically different. And my point is, I would have expected, if there was some kind of inheritance of technology, to have them slightly cosmetically different. But you saw his video about the Nova 9.
Oh, it's copy and paste everything from the buds to the phones.
It's insane. Yeah. Like, and you even look at the software. Like, I have the Honor 50, and when I set it up, I was like, my God, this feels like Harmony OS with GMS. And I hate to say that. Like, I don't want to be that person that perpetrates like conspiracy theories and BS. That's not what I'm into. But at the same time, how can we not ask that question?
The only reason you're saying it's conspiracy theorism and things is because they don't acknowledge it. They just sort of cover their eyes and be like, no, it's not. Like if
they're like la 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 la.
Yeah, if they embraced it, like we're using the fantastic hardware. Like OnePlus clearly comes from Oppo, and they like to subtly differentiate themselves, but. It was always going to be a sub-brand. It was always going to be for the youth and the younger audience. Yes, they're just copy and pasting designs, but like, why the hell not? Why are they so afraid to acknowledge it?
It's very strange. And, thanks for pointing out that it's called Honor Magic 5. I didn't even think of that. It's V. I saw a V and I'm like, it's a letter because everybody's doing some kind of letter right now.
Well, also,
you're right. It's probably 5. Yeah, that's V5, whatever. I mean, but I think 5 sounds much nicer.
I missed the first 4 Honor Magics, obviously. But
clearly, well, they skipped 4, obviously.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they had Magic 3. They had Magic 3.
Oh, they did they?
Yeah.
Okay. I missed that.
And you remember the Magics always are kind of more experimental phones. So,
I completely forgot about that. Good point.
Anyway, we don't know anything much about it, but I have a feeling that I wouldn't be surprised that if it's very similar to a Mate X2, and that's okay.
We'll know more in a couple of weeks.
I just want Honor to be a little bit more, like
transparent.
Yeah, sure. So what? Kind of. If they said so what? Like we'd be like, okay, well, I guess we can't argue with that.
It's like the Huawei phone you can buy in the UK or the US. Like, what's the deal?
Perfect. Great. Awesome. I'm happy because the Honor 50 was a great phone, and the 60 is weird because it looks exactly like the 50 but has slightly different specs. I don't understand that marketing, but hey, it's okay. So the other news is that we have another Moto Razr coming, supposedly finally like a 3rd gen Razr. If you're keeping track, there was a 4G Razr, then a 5G Razr, and the 5G Razr solved a lot of the issues of the 4G Razr, including adding a much better OIS-equipped camera, although it's Moto, so when you hear Moto and camera in the same sentence, immediately downgrade the performance to half of what the rest of the world is doing.
That's right.
I hate to say this, Moto, but you know how I feel. I've had that conversation with you folks. So hopefully this thing can compete with the Z Flip in some way. I hope that Moto is finally. It's
not something we get or we see much of in the UK, unfortunately. It's definitely a very US centric product and brand currently. We get lots of the budget Moto phones, but the Razr specifically it's just either not very popular or we just don't see it very much here.
I mean, I think I've seen more Razr. I have one. I have the 5G, and I've seen more Razrs in the wild in the hands of Mr. Mobile That,
He's the only one who spent any good time with it. Yeah.
I mean, I honestly, I don't think I've seen one in the wild. Well, I think, as you said, you have a friend with a Z Flip 3. I've seen the Z Flip in the wild, at least the original. It's interesting. I want Moto, like I love Moto and I want them to continue doing great stuff, but it seems they're a little misguided, even though financially, apparently they did pretty well this year. I just want them to like give us some competitive products that are beyond the mid-range and low end where they're pretty strong, you know?
Yeah.
And then this Microsoft Surface Trio, like threefold. So I finally got my hands on the Duo.
I was going to say, yeah, all the success they've had with that.
At Qualcomm. I finally got to play with it there briefly. It was, it was interesting, but I was just like, no. Like
it's very nice, but no.
No, right? Exactly. I don't know how to explain this to my audience other than don't bother. Please just stay away. It's interesting like a concept phone is interesting. And it's definitely more than a concept in the sense that it works and everything is there. Although there were some issues in the early days, I think they've been fixed with touch response and the camera performance is a little better now. But yeah, I was just like...
It feels like an enterprise phone. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, what does that mean? Like, would you carry that in addition to your iPhone then? Is that the... I don't know. Like, I
mean, maybe if you can have Teams on one side and on Office...
Why not buy a Z Fold 3 then?
Because the Surface Duo 2 will be like a quarter of the price in 3 months.
Oh, well, that's true. But if you're enterprise customer, you don't pay those prices.
That's very true.
You get the... Fort Knox, I don't know, they don't call it Fort, but the Knox
on Samsung,
security features for your enterprise.
But the Surface Duo, like the price, they just slashed the price after like 6-8 months, didn't they? So because no one bought it.
So this is a patent, folks. Don't read into it too
That's
much.
Also
but
true.
We could see a Surface with 3 panels, and all I have to say is I'm scratching my head, going, "What the f?"
I mean, I love it. Keep innovating and
keep trying.
Keep trying.
There was rumors of a Samsung phone with 3, like the same thing that folds in 2 spots with 3 panels. I mean, that's been going on. Didn't TCL show us one a while back?
I think you're right.
Was it CES 2 years ago? The green thing? It looked like the Green Goblin.
Oh my goodness, yeah. And also like
that?
Asus are doing lots of that sort of dual screen things with laptops, and they had the rumor of the concept of the 3-screen laptop and the Surface. Not the Duo. What was the other one? The laptop one.
The Surface Neo,
which they cancelled.
Neo? It was Neo, right? Am I right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it.
All right.
But I love the innovation, and who knows what the engineering will trickle down to.
Yeah, for sure. So, a bunch of folding phone news, rumors, teasers. I mean, it's nothing solid. Like the Magic 5 is the most solid one. The Razer and Surface are really, I just put them in there because I was like, we need some news items. And really, normally I'd be like, whatever, this is not worth my time because we have some real news to talk about. But talking of real news, we do have the Xiaomi Mi 12. And you mentioned it. There's really nothing too much to talk about here.
Well, it's not the Mi anymore. They've dropped the Mi, haven't they?
Oh, that's right. You're right. It's the Xiaomi 12. Thanks for reminding me. I keep forgetting that. So just the Xiaomi 12, the success to the Mi 11 last year. And
yes,
it is exactly what we expected. Actually, I'm surprised they didn't put a 108 megapixel sensor in there. It's a 50.
Yes, because they did with the 11 Ultra.
It's triple 50 though. I like that idea.
It's hard to say. It's so hard to gauge because a lot of people loved the 11 series cameras. A lot of people hated it. It was a real like love or hate kind of thing. And it's just so hard to tell from until you play with it to see what their processing is, to see what the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 can do, see if the new 707 IMX from Sony makes any difference. I can't wait to try it. But didn't we? Are we expecting to see an Ultra version as well at some point?
I'm sure, but later. They always do this. The 11 Ultra came out, I think 3 months after the 11 Pro, which, by the way, I never got to see the Pro. I got to play with the 11. The 11 Lite was amazing for the money. It was so light.
I know. I got sent the 11, the 11T, the Lite, but I never got given
the 11T, the Xiaomi 11T with 120 watt charging. I reviewed that for Geekspin. Yeah.
That was nice.
Anyway, but here we have 3. We have the Xiaomi 12, Xiaomi 12X, and Xiaomi 12 Pro. I'm going to focus on the 12 Pro because
it's interesting.
Well, one of them is not worth talking about. I think the 12X is kind of mad. But the 12 Pro is, the cameras are interesting. I don't know if this is a Samsung sensor or a Sony sensor, that 50 megapixel triple sensor. There's no pixel size here. They might be slightly different 50 megapixel sensors. Remember, I have a Moto G Power 2022 version that came out a month ago that was lent to me to review. It's a Helio G37, a $200 US phone, 4G,
Fun.
very basic. It's got a 50 megapixel main camera that is absolute utter crap. Like, it is so bad. It is worse than the 12, 13, 16s that they had on previous phones, or 48s that they had on previous phones at that price point. I don't really think Xiaomi would do this on this model, but there are some really bad, really entry-level 50 megapixel sensors out there now from probably OmniVision or something that are just designed for the budget phones. That now when you read 50, for a while you read 15, it was Sony IMX766, right? Like
every time.
And now it's like, oh, could be something.
Do you remember
else.
when we had on the HTC M8, we had the ultra pixels, and we had like 4 ultra pixels, they called it. And it was like the fight against megapixels. It doesn't matter how many you have.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, we've been saying this for years. Of course it doesn't matter. But now we've sort of forgotten that because didn't work very well. And now we're back up to 108s. And 50s, triple 50s.
I mean, we didn't have binning back then. Now,
well,
like, you never get 50 megapixel out of this. You're going to get 12.5, right? So
right, that's a great point. Yeah, and that gives you a bit of zoom.
So the question I have is this a GN1 from Samsung, which is a phenomenal sensor, or is this a 766 from Sony, also a great sensor? We don't know.
Hopefully the GN1. No.
I'm thinking the main is going to be a GN1 because generally, lately, Xiaomi has been doing Samsung sensors for their big main sensors. So this might be the same sensor that was in the Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra and in the Vivo X70 Pro and Pro Plus, which is a phenomenal sensor.
Great camera, yeah.
Great camera. So it's got all the trimmings. But here again, we have a 50 megapixel 2x telephoto, why 2x and why no OIS, right? It's the same as the Oppo Find N and so many of those, particularly BBK group phones that have those, token portrait camera 2x, woo. But why? So look, I prefer that. Although it says telephoto, but I wouldn't be surprised if this might be a macro. Because in the past, they've had that telemacro on the Xiaomi 11, Mi 11, back then. It's interesting. I don't know. This looks good though. I mean, but as you said earlier, it's like very evolutionary. And the camera pod design is not as like interesting as it was with the Xiaomi Mi 11.
No, it looks very clean, but it's not really exciting. Although obviously they've got some fancy colors. My wife Sarah, as I was posting on Instagram about it, said, there's a purple one, or like a lavender one. And at this stage, what else is there to differentiate phones?
But then here we are, 2 or 3 years into these excellent flagships from these various Chinese makers, Android side of things, and I look at the selfie camera specs, and it tops out at 1080p. Like,
I know.
Apple's been doing 4K on iPhone SE even for 2 years now.
But then the selfie camera on the iPhone 13 is probably the one area where the camera falls down a little bit in terms of photography.
For sure.
That's not really been improved.
But why can't we get 4K on these front cameras when there's 32 megapixels to pick from?
I don't know. But the S21, the S20 could do it. We've had it for a couple of years, as you say, but some phones just don't seem to be able to. Maybe they have to pay extra to unlock that on the ISP or the I don't know. Weird though.
Maybe it's like, like they want to do with cars, subscription-based everything. So it's going to be like, Qualcomm's like, you want this feature? You pay $1 more.
Yeah. If you want 8K HDR 30 FPS, then pay $12.99 a month.
Oh my God. I don't know. This thing looks okay.
It does look okay, but
it's not really exciting me though.
No.
And related to that, we've got rumors. Is it rumors? I think it's rumors. Renders have leaked of the Oppo Find X.
Yeah.
4, but it's probably going to be called X5 because superstition in China, I get it. But it's interesting because it's kind of like, I don't know, what do you think of that weird camera bump? I'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, did you see that? It looks like the 3 and they just sort of made it slanty. Like
cut a corner off.
They melted it even more. It feels kind of lazy if that is what it's going to be.
Again, very evolutionary. I'm like, where is everyone this year? I mean, I suppose...
I liked it. I liked the 3.
I rocked the 3 as my main phone, even though I don't have 5G support in the US for 3 months because I loved it so much. But I feel like I'm not slamming it. I think it's going to be a solid phone, but like it does seem just like a notch forward, but nothing too exciting, really.
And Oppo need to do something because no one cares. It's such they for my videos, my content at least, that far fewer people watch or care about these Oppo flagship launches. I know that the mid-range and the Renos are quite popular because they're reasonably more affordable, but
India as well. You get India.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But for them to compete with what will be the S22 and S22 Ultra, they just keep getting backed into the shadows. And last year they did stuff with the 10-bit screen and 10-bit camera, but that was very difficult to explain. And did it make any difference? The design was quite unique, but they need to be more competitively priced. If they could undercut the S22 by 100 or something and offer similar specs, then that would be such a difference. But they're often exactly the same price. I get they want to be at that premium tier and they don't want to, they want to be seen as that, but often you just see more innovation, maybe gimmicky, but more innovation from Samsung.
It's true. And honestly, I love these phones for being different. And I mean, rocking the Find X3 Pro for me was in part because I really like the experience and the camera in particular.
And their microscopic lens was very cool, actually. Exactly. I don't want to forget about that.
The camera especially, but apparently this doesn't have that anymore. This has, there's 3 models. There's a Find X5 Lite, Find X5, and Find X5 Pro, as you'd expect. And
Find X5 Pro,
I think the middle one, the Find X5, is Dimensity 9000, which is MediaTek's new flagship chip. So it should be interesting.
Because the benchmarks we've been seeing suggest that Dimensity 9000 really is giving Snapdragon Qualcomm a good run for their money, like comparable to the 8 Gen 1 in some areas, not all, but like probably half the price or something. So like MediaTek's really like coming up.
Exactly. So I'm excited about that. But I do want the 5 Pro simply because of the cameras are going to be better. Yeah. And that one is obviously an 8 Gen 1 from Qualcomm Snapdragon. So the rest is par for the course. 120 hertz AMOLED. We got a QHD panel on the Pro, of course.
It's nothing, but maybe we hit peak smartphone now.
We've been saying this for years, but that's not true. I think the battle is more in the folding space. I think the Oppo Find N here that we just got is kind of like Oppo saying, okay, look up there. We're still going to make the flagship bar phones, and this is what you get. And I think, I'm not sure what they could have done differently. They could have done another camera pod design, but then they would break from their current design language, which I think, for the Find series seems to be this melted camera thing.
Yeah, this is only the 2nd gen of that. So you're right. You have to give them 2 or 3 years of each design.
And then, of course, we're seeing 125 watt charging potentially on the Chinese models, like 80 watt otherwise. Some crazy stuff here. It's just not really that. Look, this phone is going to be fantastic, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing what the cameras do, especially with that new Snapdragon chip and that new MediaTek chip as well on the regular model.
But beyond that, it's really not much to play with. You might get 2 more FPS in Genshin, but beyond that, it's just the camera, isn't it? That we're all really excited to see what it can do.
And we don't really know much about them. There doesn't say. It looks like there's no microscope, but hopefully we get and it doesn't look from the photos or the renders or the leaks that there is a folded lens, like a periscope. 5x or 4x periscope telephoto. So that's a bit of a bummer considering the Find X2 Pro had a telephoto that was pretty decent, 5x back then. So I don't know. Look, I'm a big fan.
Maybe they can be more competitively priced although I know it's all down to Qualcomm charging a ton of money for the chips, but like maybe they can make it a little cheaper. They won't, but
yeah, I feel like they won't simply because they've kind of put a stake in the ground with the Find series to say this is our premium,
£1,100
flagship, and you want the good stuff, And I think it worked with the Find X2 Pro. Like at the time, other than wireless charging, which was missing, it was a better OnePlus 8 Pro, right? In every way.
The leather back as well is beautiful.
Other than maybe the software and the wireless charging, but. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little mixed about this one, to be honest.
And also, obviously, OnePlus are moving ever so. Every day they're one step closer to Oppo's Color UI, and we're losing Oxygen OS, which is I think a real shame. Yeah, OnePlus in many ways is getting less and less exciting. They're becoming more expensive. They're becoming Oppo.
Well, I think they're going to have to correct course this year. I think they learned their lesson. They made the 9. You have to understand, like, I'm looking at it from a US perspective here a little more, but the 9 was made for the carriers, particularly T-Mobile, right? So they took a 9 Pro, and instead of doing like a slightly detuned, but we choose in-house what we detune, they were like, detune it based on what the carriers want. And the carriers are like, oh, we can save $1 with OIS, let's take out OIS, which is a real stupid idea on a phone that caliber. And then the plastic frame, the Nord has a plastic frame, but I feel like the Nord is like 40% or 30% less cost. So I'm willing to accept a plastic.
I love the Nord. I think they're really doing well with that.
The plastic frame on the Nord is fine, but on the 9, I was like, really, look at Google. Pixel 6, right? The best value on the planet right now, possibly on Android. $5.99, at least in the US, $5.99 US dollars for a metal and glass phone with OIS on the main camera and a really good main camera and all the trimmings. Everything is there that you need. If Google can out OnePlus, like last year, Samsung out OnePlus with the S20 Fan Edition. It showed, hey, hold my beer. We can make phones like you used to, OnePlus. Check it out. And I think that Google inadvertently did that, just because of aggressive pricing and good specs and a solid delivery. But I don't think they're aiming to, or I think the Fan Edition is really like squarely was aimed at OnePlus back in those days. OnePlus has gone up so high in price that there's no value to beat anymore in a way.
No, it's discounted now, but yeah. Although I want to see a Poco F4, the F3 back at the beginning of 2021 with the Snapdragon 870, I think it was. It was like £350.
It was
incredible.
Amazing.
That was probably the best value phone for like 9 months here in the UK at least. I hope we see an F4 with.
And then there was the Realme GT. Remember that?
Yeah.
Also $450 US dollars for Snapdragon 888. Of course, it wasn't officially sold here.
120 hertz AMOLED.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything.
Yeah. So it makes you think, why do you need to spend this much?
I think my point is that OnePlus, I think, needs to look at this. And from what I've had conversation with some people there, it seems that they're probably going to adjust course. Like, don't expect the Pro version, the 10 Pro, to be, anything but a flagship. But I think it might be priced. Remember how the 9 Pro came out and we never got the lower spec version? Remember they canceled the lower spec? So if they can deliver a higher spec version at the lower spec price of the 9 Pro last year with the 10 Pro coming up, I think we're okay for that. But the 10 needs to be like $600 and it needs to be well equipped for $600, $700. And if it isn't, then it's another example of them just doing something for the carriers and messing it up. And now you're going to say, where does that put the Nord? Well, the Nord is still a class below that in pricing, right? How much is it in the UK? $399?
$379 or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and so that adds up to what it would be, probably $450 to $500 in the US. It would compete with a Pixel 5a. And honestly, having used it, I'm like, we're never going to get in the US because, again, the carriers are going to be too close in performance and specs to the OnePlus 10, right? In this case. But I hope they don't dilute the 10 too much and price it competitively. And even, if the carriers get upset, the carriers can have the 10 Pro if they want to make money. Here in the US, you know how it is. People are going to buy the premium one anyway. Like, you get it subsidized. It doesn't matter.
It's over 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
And from what I hear, they did not sell a lot of 9s. They didn't sell a lot of 9 Pros either. But the 9 Pro, at least the enthusiast bought, right? Whereas the 9 was just like, people looked at it and was
I hope we see some actual input from is it Leica they're working? Who is it? What's the Hasselblad. Because last time it was a bit of software optimizations, but their roadmap said that future phones would have hardware they'd help out. So I'd be curious to see if that makes any difference. It didn't really last time.
Well, we'll find out. I'm holding my breath and rooting for OnePlus because I feel like they could still come out ahead here if they really did apply themselves. And we know that, they are the Oppo equivalent for North America and certain markets. So even I would argue for you guys, because they're probably a bigger brand in the UK than Oppo is, even though you sell Oppo there. So let's see how it goes. Well, look, we covered all the news and pretty much lots of tangents on everything we want to talk. It was fantastic. Do you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet, Tom?
Yeah, so I'm just at the Tech Chap mainly on YouTube, a little bit on Instagram, and I just like to share my posh English accent and my opinions on tech. So like and subscribe.
You folks should definitely subscribe to Tom's channel, the Tech Chap, on YouTube. It's awesome. And follow him on Twitter and all that. And you know where to find me on the internet. I'm at Tankgirl. That's TNKGRL on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to talk about this podcast with me and Tom, please hit us up on Twitter, ask us questions, corrections, all that stuff. Argue with us about whatever you want to argue about. We might not respond, but we'll definitely appreciate the feedback. And, if you want to look on Instagram, I got some pretty pictures of phones, pretty pictures of cars, most of them taken with phones. So it's kind of like meta. And then, of course, there is a couple of YouTube channels for me as well. There's youtube.com/mobile tech podcast, which is essentially where all my unboxing videos and phone and peripheral to phone, like wearables, earbuds, all that kind of stuff ends up. Things that are close to phones and our phones. I do a lot of unboxings mostly, but sometimes reviews, so check that out. Then there's youtube.com/mobiletechmore, and that is essentially a channel that my producer and I just started a little while back. It's for all the, cool tech that's not directly smartphones. So travel tech, car tech, home automation tech, all that fun stuff. We're going to try to get more content there. So we'd love you to subscribe and, like the videos. You know how YouTube works. Do that on both channels, particularly the Mobile Tech More, since we're trying to get the 1,000 subscribers to monetize. So it'd be great. You know how it works. Comment. Let me know in the comments what you think of the videos. Comment about the podcast on the YouTube. That's fine. You can do that too. I'll be there for you all. And, click the little notification bell and do all that good stuff that you know how to do for YouTube. I would appreciate it. And then, of course, the podcast lives at mobiletechpodcast.com. We're on all the big platforms: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify, everywhere good podcasts can be found. So please subscribe. There's also an RSS feed there at the URL if you want to join the old school way. And please rate and review the show if your app lets you do that. That would really help. I'd appreciate it. And then there's a Patreon, patreon.com/Tankgirl. We mentioned it halfway through the show, patreon.com/TNKGRL. I want to thank my patrons. There is a bunch of things there. First, you can get a video version of the podcast. You get it a little ahead of time. So it's less edited. Like, it's just a very quick, throw everything in Final Cut, do a quick edit. So it's a little more raw, a little more real, and you get to see our faces, which is fun. So consider that. That's one tier. There is a Discord channel you can join and chat with me as well. It's kind of like an exclusive thing through the Patreon. So consider that. The tiers are pretty affordable. We've got a whole bunch of folks out there, and I appreciate all of you. We didn't have a new Patreon this week, but maybe you'll be the one next week. So please consider the Patreon. I appreciate patreon.com/TNKGRL. And if you don't like Patreon, I get it. There is a PayPal link in the show notes where all the links for all the things we discussed are. And you should click through there, and you can make a donation, a one-time donation, and buy me a coffee or something. That'd be awesome, and appreciate it a lot. And finally, I want to thank our sponsor, Audible. Audible has been with us since the early days. They're pretty amazing. I love that you can get a good deal, 30-day free trial. You get to keep a book at the end, whether you stay or not. That's basically what we have here. But you will stay, because if you're like me and you love to read, and I'm a reader, I like books, you will want to have books read to you. That's what audiobooks are about. I am in front of my computer most of the day, and by the end of the day, when I want to take a break and I don't want to watch TV, my eyes are too tired to read. I just rather listen. So I just put my earbuds in, put a book on Audible, and just enjoy it. And it's fantastic. So check it out. They have a whole selection, tons of books. There's also some short form content. There's some podcasts there. And, the best part is a lot of the books are read by the authors. I really love it. And road trips. Oh my God. Road trips with the Audible. I don't think I could do it. It's fantastic to listen to these epic long books on these road trips. So I'm going to Vegas in my car. So guess what's going to happen? Audible. Oh, it's going to be good. That and Welcome to Night Vale, which we'll probably be catching up on, which is, as you know, a podcast. But you can get it on Audible like other podcasts. So check it out. I want to thank Audible for being our longtime sponsor. audibletrial.com/mobiletech is the URL. And thanks again, Tom, for being my guest.
Thank you.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, I always love it. Good to talk to you. Good to see you.
Absolutely. We'll have you on the show at some time again soon. And then, of course, folks, we'll have a show next week. So stay tuned for that. And until then, cheers, everybody.
Cheers, guys.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.